we're going to move right into the gospel reading itself. This is a very powerful gospel, especially 2 verses out of tonight's gospel reading. It has great meaning for anyone here who has a bad hair day and allow that bad hair day to ruin your entire day. This gospel reading is for you. For anyone who their printer on their computer just won't work and it frazzles your entire life, this gospel reading is for you. For anyone who chips a nail and then your sour disposition for the entire day, this gospel reading is for you. So let's take a look at 2 verses out of the gospel reading itself. So we want to look at verses 25 and 26, 11th chapter of Matthew. Now what I read a couple minutes ago was the 11th chapter of Matthew, verses 25 to 30, but we're just going to look at verse 25 and 26. It says, "At that time Jesus exclaimed, I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. For although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you revealed them to little ones." Now, in order to really understand that, we have to dissect that little section. So we're going to go back and take a look. At that time Jesus exclaimed, so he's talking to his disciples, "I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth." And then he says this, "For although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned." Now, the wise and the learned, Jesus is referencing what group of people? There's a group of people Jesus is talking about who are wise and who are learned. What's that group of people? What is it? Okay, scribes and Pharisees, and they belong to this group of people, but a lot of us fall into that category. Those who are wise and learned is a reference to what group of people? Self-righteous, that's going to be true as well, but there's a group of people. It looks like just from standing, probably 80% of the people here tonight fall into that category. The wise and the learned is a reference to what group of people? Adults, you're exactly right. Adults. You know, as you grow up, you get educated. You become, with your education and then with your age, just living on the face of the earth, you gain wisdom, you become wise and learned. Now, what Jesus Christ is saying, it is from the wise and the learned I've hidden certain things. And then he has revealed, and there it is, you have revealed them to the little ones. Out of the mouths of babes comes such wisdom and insight and intelligence that sometimes a little child can interpret life better than an adult. Why? Because a little child does not have the eyes of bias. A little child does not have the eyes of prejudice. A little child sees things as pure and simple as they are, and they put their finger right on it right away, and they understand, and often they understand life. Now, I remember many years ago when I was a young priest, I had the opportunity to take communion to a 5-year-old gal dying of leukemia. She knew she was 5, she knew she was dying, she knew she had leukemia. And her parents thought it would be a nice idea, they were very devout Catholics, if their daughter would be able to receive communion. Now, the doctor said this gal would not make it to 6 years old. Typically, the age of communion is the 2nd grade, 7, 8 years old. Well, we thought, yeah, that would be wise to give her communion. She probably wouldn't live to be 6. Although she would not understand perhaps the full detail of the beauty of communion itself, but she would be able to receive the grace of that sacrament to receive communion. And if we gave her communion and kind of swayed the rules a little bit, we doubted at that time that the world would end, and it didn't. So often that's true in life. I was given the great honor, and I consider an honor to give this little gal communion. Now, initially I was asked just to take communion to her home, where her parents lived, once a month. But the very first time I got there, I said to myself, I am not coming here once a month. I'm going to go there every day. Because when I got to her house and the mother escorted me to her bedroom, the gal was confined to the bed. And I looked at her, she was absolutely beautiful. She had a little round face and blue eyes and a big smile, and she had just something that just I fell in love with, and she had a dimple. One dimple. It was the deepest dimple I'd ever seen in my life. It was a huge, massive dimple on one side, the side right over the left side. And when I got to her bedroom, when I looked at that round face with those blue eyes and a big smile and that seriously deep dimple, I instantly fell in love. And I said to myself, I'm coming back tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And every time I got there, she was always smiling, but she knew she was dying at 5. She knew she'd never graduate from high school. Her parents knew, and I, that she'd never experienced puppy love. She'd never enjoy all those things of growing up, would never be hers to have. She knew that she'd be missing out on a lot of things as she looked at her brothers and sisters and saw the joy they had running around outside, her confined to the bed. But she always smiled. I run across people on my way to her home on any given day who had good jobs, good homes, good health, good assets, everything they could possibly want. And often these people who had it all, the wise and the learned, there it is, the adults, they're running around with a chip in their shoulder, a frown in their face, anger in their heart. And I would get to her house, 5 years old, dying of leukemia, have nothing to look forward to. She always had a smile. Why was that? Why did she always have a smile when she had nothing, so to speak, going for her? And many of the folks who had a lot going for them, the adults, were cranky and angry. There's a reason for it. Good reason for it. I remember one day I'm driving out to her house. This is the last time I saw her, 4 days before she died. I can never remember what detained me to her house those last 4 days. But we'd have long conversations. I sat in a chair that was located next to her bed. We'd had these beautiful conversations, and I said to myself, this one day driving over to her home, I'm going to ask her one question today. I'm going to say to her, honey, if God gave you one wish, anything you wanted would be yours, what would you ask for? Now, we had these deep philosophical conversations all the time. She was so precocious. She understood so much at 5. So I enjoyed talking to her. Now, as I knew I was going to ask her that question, I started to think in my mind what answer she would give me. So I knew I was going to ask the question, if God gave you one wish, anything you wanted would be yours, what would you ask for? So I thought to myself, one possible answer she might give me is, hopefully I get better and live. Because I figure she's probably like the rest of humanity, myself included. Sometimes we only interpret the world by what is best for me. That, however, was not her answer. Then I thought to myself, maybe she'd say something like, hopefully they find a cure to leukemia and quick, so that myself and everyone else in the same boat as I will all be able to survive. But again, that was not her answer. And I asked her this question, if God gave you one wish, anything you wanted would be yours, what would you ask for? And I remember she looked at me, and as I'm standing right here, and I see all of you naturally, but between you and I could see her face between us, looking right at me. Her face is seared in my memory. I could see it. I see it often. And she did me a great favor as a young priest because she changed my life instantly with her answer to that question. And I said to her, honey, if God gave you one wish, I'm looking right at her. She's got these blue eyes and a big smile, one seriously deep dimple. I said to myself, I know why that dimple is so deep, because God took the dimple from this side and he added to the dimple on that side. It was the deepest thing I'd ever seen. If God gave you one wish and anything you wanted would be yours, what would you ask for? And she looked at me and she said this. She said, Father Ken, I would hope and pray everyone would get that close to death and then recover. That's a direct quote. Again, as I stand here, I can see you, but between you and I see her. If everyone would get that close to death and then recover. And I said to myself, I think I know what that means. I'm not sure what that means. She definitely seems to know what that means. She has an understanding of life that I don't have. She hasn't been to the first grade. I've been to graduate school, but this gal understands life. I cannot allow the interpretation of that quote from her to me to reside with my assumption. So I said to her, what exactly does that mean? And this said. She said, if everyone would get that close to death and recover, because it's only in my death that I understand the meaning of life. And that was powerful. And I said to myself, now I know why you smile all the time. Because in her death, she understood the meaning of life. That's why she always had a smile. That's why she was never negative. That's why she was never nasty. That's why she was never angry at God, because she realized what? I have just a certain amount of time on the face of this earth, and I'm not going to waste it by being angry and hurtful and resentful to God. I have to enjoy what I have. That's a powerful message. There it is, especially verse 26. Although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, sometimes as adults we miss the boat. You reveal them to the little ones. Out of the mouths of babes comes such incredible intelligence and wisdom. Now think about it. If you could get that close to death and recover, legitimately that close to death and then recover, you'd be a different person after than you were before. Because it's only in death you understood the meaning of life. When you allow a bad hair day to affect your entire day, that means you don't understand the meaning of life. Because if you had a bad hair day, all you should say to yourself is, no problem. I'll go to sleep and tomorrow will be a new day and it'll be better. If you allow your printer that's on the frets and it's not working, your computer's not running the way it should, to affect your disposition, then that means what? You don't understand life. If you chip your nail and then you're just, oh, my whole life is ruined. I can't believe it. Look. And you come home and that's the first thing you tell your spouse. Look, look. And that means you don't understand life. You don't know the meaning of life. The small peripheral things we should not get worked up about. That they're meaningless. To allow those things to interrupt the flow of your day, the sunshine that might be outside, and the happiness you should have in your heart. Those things don't mean anything. If you've ever been dealing, and I'm sure many of you have, but if you've ever been dealing with the loss of a loved one or a loved one who's come down with terminal illness, then instantly what happens? All those things, those small little things that got you aggravated and riled up, they don't mean anything. You forget about all of them. Because now you're dealing with something that is important. Don't allow those small little things in life to ruin your day. A bad hair day, it's meaningless. Computer on her frets, meaningless. A chip of the nail, meaningless. Let the important things be important. The minor things remain off the radar screen. I'll leave you with that quote, what this little gal told me, because it really affected my life. I think about her all the time because it was just a great thing for her to tell me. I was so honored by that. There it is. What you've hidden from the wise and the learned, adults, sometimes as adults, we don't get it. You have revealed to the little ones. And this is what she said. If everyone would get that close to death and then recover, because it's only in death that I understand the meaning of life. That's why at 5 and dying of leukemia, she always smiled.